Hello, I'm Cosmic Scale, the developer behind the PSBBN Definitive English patch. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for the positive reaction and all the feedback you've given me since launch. I really wasn't expecting this project to get so much attention. I primarily made this for myself because I love the PSBBN interface. I'm glad so many people are getting to experience PSBBN for the first time. It's been over a month since my last video and there's been a lot of updates in that time. In this video, I'm going to outline all those updates, answer some common questions, and talk you through an updated tutorial. First, let me give you a quick rundown of what PSBBN is. PSBBN, also known as the PlayStation Broadband Navigator or BB Navigator, is official Sony software for the PlayStation 2, released exclusively in Japan. It was introduced back in 2002 as a replacement for the PS2's very basic interface. It required a hard drive and network adapter and added many new features like running games from the hard drive, ripping audio CDs, transferring music to minidisc recorders, downloading and watching videos, viewing photos, accessing online channels, and more. The aim of this project was to translate PSBBN from the original Japanese to English, add some modern features, and make it a viable daily driver for use in 2025 and beyond. In my last video, I mainly focused on support for large capacity drives, previously limited to 128GB, the PSBBN installer, and the game installer. I've been hard at work over the past month adding many new features, including updating the game installer script so it creates and deletes OPL launcher partitions as needed, say goodbye to those annoying coming soon placeholders, Game ID support for the PixelFX Retro Gem, as well as Game ID support for Memcard Pro 2 and SD2 PSX. Games now launch faster, added Open PS2 Loader and Launch Disk applications, giving you more flexibility with physical media, allowing imported PS1 games to run in the correct video mode, so Mechapone users can boot imports and master discs. Physical games now also support the Retro Gem Game ID. The installer scripts can now be run on Arch-based Linux distributions as well as Debian. The script now auto-updates, so you are always using the latest version. There's also been lots of bug fixes and refinements. Last time I said I don't know how yet, but I would like people to contribute their art folder too, so we can build our own collection and not have to download everything off IGN. Introducing the PSBBN art database. Now, when you run the game installer, artwork is automatically contributed to the PSBBN art database. The database currently has over 3,000 images and is growing every day. This will speed up game installs, ensure all artwork is correct, and eventually remove our reliance on IGN. Missing artwork is now automatically reported. Well, with all the updates out the way, let's move on to some frequently asked questions. By far, the most asked question has been, why does PSBBN require an official Sony network adapter? Why can't I use a third-party one? Well, the main issue is that third-party network adapters do not exist. All third-party adapters have the HDD interface but no networking support. PSBBN is official Sony software and expects to be run on official Sony hardware. It crashes at startup with a third-party adapter. Could the software be modified to get around this? Not easily, due to the closed source bootloader. There is some hope for the future though. Kaiko have reached out to me and expressed interest in manufacturing a compatible network adapter with SATA support, but only time will tell. Linux sucks. Can you make the installer scripts work on Windows? At the moment, the PSBBN installer script and the game installer script both require Linux. This is due to necessity. The project uses APA gel. Technical limitations with Windows make it impossible to partition drives in this way natively on the Windows OS. Windows users can use Microsoft's Windows Subsystem for Linux, or WSL for short, but it will require additional setup. For Windows users, by far the simplest solution is to just install Linux Mint Cinnamon Edition on a USB drive and boot from that. Everything can be run from a live Linux environment. Can PSBBN run on a slim PS2 console? Technically, yes, but only on the 70,000 series consoles, and it's not for the faint-hearted. PSBBM requires an internal HDD. These slim model consoles still have the IDE interface on the main board. With mods like the IDE Resurrector, it is possible. PSBBN is pretty fussy when it comes to what hardware it will run on, so your choice of drive and micro SD card reader will be critical for compatibility. I get a black screen when I try to load a game from the game channel, and the games list doesn't show up in OPL. What can I do? Firstly, delete all OPL config files from your PS2 memory cards. Old config files can cause issues. In OPL settings, set the BDM start mode to auto. Under BDM devices, turn HDD on. Then save your settings. You should now be able to see the games list. If that doesn't work, it could be that your drive is currently not supported by the exFAT version of OPL. There's a known bug that is affecting a small minority of HDD and SSDs. If you experience this bug, please report it to the main OPL GitHub. I hope a fix can be found soon. Testing has shown that affected drives work without issue when using Neutrino, and I plan to write a Neutrino launcher compatible with PSBBN in the future. In the meantime, the only solution is to try a different drive. Well, that pretty much covers everything. If you would like to show support for me and the continued development of the PSBBN Definitive English patch, as well as future PS2 related projects, I now have a Ko-fi where you can donate. Any contributions, no matter how small, are welcome. You can find me on ko-fi.com/cosmicscale. A link will be in the description and the pinned comment. The rest of this video is an updated tutorial, as a number of things have changed since last time. If you're a newcomer or just want to see what's new, then stick around. Let's start with what you'll need. A fat PlayStation 2 console, an official Sony network adapter, preferably a SATA conversion kit, a SATA HDD or SSD over 200 gig, preferably over 500 gig. You also need a way to connect the drive to your PC. The scripts require Linux. I recommend Linux Mint. If you don't have a Linux install on your computer, you can either create a live USB to boot from or use a virtual machine. Let's head over to the desktop and I'll show you how it works. Okay, the first thing you need to do is launch your favorite web browser and go to github.com/cosmicscale. Then you need to click on the PSBBN Definitive English patch. You can have a look at the README, but we are interested in the download link. So click on code. Click here to get the URL copied to the clipboard. Now you can just close the web browser and launch the terminal. Type git clone, then paste in the URL and hit return, and it's downloading now. Right, that's done, so you can close the terminal. I won't be asking you to type any more commands. Alright, now we can double click on the PSBBN Definitive English Patch folder, and in here you will find 3 scripts. First of all, we need to run the setup script, so double click that, click run in terminal. This script installs all dependencies required for the PSBBN installer and game installer. It must be run first. Press any key to continue. So let's just press any key and wait for that to run. That will take a little while, so I will be back with you shortly. Okay, with the setup script done, next is the PSBBN installer. But first, make sure your PlayStation 2 hard drive is connected to your PC, either via USB or internally. Just make sure it's connected. Then we can double click on the PSBBN installer and again click Run in Terminal. Now here you will find a list of all the drives connected to your computer. I've got quite a few, but from this list we've got to find the PlayStation 2 drive. Now I know mine is the Kingston 240G, so that is /dev/SDE. So let's type that /dev/SDE and press return. Are you sure you want to write to /dev/SDE? This will erase all data on the drive. So double check, make sure you've got the right drive, and then type yes and hit return. Then it checks for the latest version of the PSBBN definitive patch, and if it doesn't find it stored locally, it downloads it from the Internet Archive. So now you just got to wait for the download, and that will take a little while, so I will be back when that's done. Okay, the download's almost complete. Another few more seconds. Okay, and then it downloads the POPs binaries of the Internet Archive. Right, now we are writing the PSBBN disk image, and that takes around 20 minutes, so I will be back. Okay, with PSBBN now installed and verified, we need to decide how we're going to partition the first 128 gigabytes of the drive. First, we need to decide how big we'd like the music partition to be. The minimum is 10 gigabytes, the maximum is 40 gigabytes. Let's go with 20. You have selected 20 gigabytes for the music partition. Are you sure you want to proceed? Yes. What size would you like the POPs partition to be? All remaining space will be made available for OPL launcher partitions. The minimum is 10 gigabytes, the maximum is 73 gigabytes. Now the POPs partition is where the PlayStation 1 games will be stored. Let's go with 30 gigabytes. You have selected 30 gigabytes for the POPs partition. This will leave enough space for 449 games. Are you sure you want to proceed? Yes. Okay, it's installed POPs and OPL. It's running APA-JAL, which is formatting the remainder of the drive as exFAT for PlayStation 2 games. Okay, that's the POPs, music partition and the OPL partition successfully created. And that's PSBBN completely installed. Press any key to exit. Okay, let's get some games installed. In the folder of all the scripts, you'll find a games folder, and this is where your games go. If you're familiar with OPL, you'll know what to do, but PS2 CD-based games go in the CD folder, PS2 DVD-based games go in the DVD folder, and PlayStation 1 games go in the POPs folder. If you've got your games stored in a different location like I have, then there's some extra steps, and I'll show you what you need to do. Let's just open up the location of my games. There they are. Okay, you can see our CD, DVD and POPs folder here. Let's just have a look in the DVD folder. You can see we've got ISO files, we've got ZSO files, we've got games that start with the game ID and games that don't. Like the file name and format doesn't matter, the script deals with all of that. If you look in the POPs folder, all PS1 games need to be in the VCD format. So that's all the games we're going to be installing that I've got ready. Okay, now if you right click on the games folder and say copy, and then come back over here and double click on the game installer and click display. Then here you will find modify this path if your games are stored in a different location. So if you get rid of that and paste in the new path of where my games are, and then do File, Save, and close that, we are now ready to run the game installer script. And like I say, that's only necessary if your games are in a different folder than this one. We are now ready to install some games, so double click on the game installer script and this time click Run in Terminal. The game installer syncs games from your PC to your PS2. It works the same way as iPods used to work with iTunes, if you remember that. Files will be copied to or removed from your PS2's drive as necessary to match the games folder on your PC. Okay, press any key to continue. Now we need to type in the device name of the PlayStation 2 drive again. If you remember from last time, it was /dev/SDE. It's a bit easier to spot this time because there's a recovery and OPL partition on there too. So let's type /dev/SDE and hit return. It's now creating a list of the PlayStation and PlayStation 2 games. It's found a ZSO file without a game ID in the file name. Now it needs to temporarily decompress it to extract the game ID, and then it will rename the file. Next time you run the installer, it won't need to do this. If you have a lot of ZSO files in your game collection, it's probably best to rename them with the game ID before running the script, because otherwise it will take quite some time, or you could just wait it out. Okay, that's the games list created successfully. Number of games to install, 21. Ready to install games, press any key to continue. Now it's syncing the PlayStation 1 games to the PlayStation 2 drive. If you've got a lot of games, that might take a while. Now it's syncing the PlayStation 2 games to the PlayStation 2 drive. Again, if you've got a lot of games, it may take a while. Okay, that's the PlayStation 2 games successfully synced. It's now unmounting the OPL partition. Game artwork is now being downloaded from the PSBBN art database. Any missing artwork, it will attempt to download from IGN. It's now creating the OPL launcher partitions for each game. Artwork that wasn't found in the PSBBN art database is now automatically contributed. And that's the game installer script done. And if you want to add or remove games in the future, all you need to do is go to your games folder and just either remove games or add games to here, and then just rerun the game installer script. It's that simple. You will be left with a few log files. First, let's look at the missing art.log. This shows the games that it wasn't able to download artwork for. This will automatically be reported so that in the future these games can be added to the PSBBN art database. You will also find the game installer log and the PSBBN installer log. If you have any problems, you can raise an issue on GitHub, include these logs, and hopefully I'll be able to sort the problem for you. Okay, let's put this drive back in the PS2 and see what we've got. Okay, with the drive back in the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 2 booted, let's head over to the game channel. You may notice that when you're scrolling through the games list for the first time, it's a bit laggy and the artwork doesn't load quickly. All you have to do is scroll all the way through the games right to the end, and that gives PSBBN time to cache all the artwork. Then when you quit to the top menu and come to the games list again, it all loads fine and everything's smooth. It's only that first time. I hope you found this video useful and you'll give the PSBBN Definitive English Patch 2.0 a try. If you want to see what else PSBBN can do, you can check out my other video, PSBBN in 2024 and beyond. But that's it for today. Until next time, Cosmic Scowl signing out.